The planet Valorix was once peaceful. Its twin suns warmed the silver forests, and blue rivers flowed through quiet cities. Children played in the gardens. Elders told stories of the stars. The people believed they were safe, protected by the Galactic Union Alliance of Worlds, sworn to defend each other. That belief ended the day. The sky turned black. Without warning, strange enemy ships appeared in orbit. Their hulls were jagged, like broken bones. They didn't send messages, they didn't answer calls, they simply opened fire. Massive beams tore through the skies, burning buildings to ash. Screams echoed in the air. Soldiers ran to defend the capital, but their weapons were weak against the enemy's armor. No one knew who they were or where they came from. Only one thing was clear: they wanted Valorix to burn. Governor Thalos stood in the command tower, watching the sky through a cracked window. His skin was pale. His voice trembled. "Send the signal again," he said. "We already did. 10 times, replied Laia, the communications officer. "The Union isn't responding. No one is." Thalos clenched his jaw. "Keep trying." The towers of the capital shook as another blast hit the outer shield. Sparks rained down. Panic spread through the city. Families rushed underground. Emergency lights flickered. Soldiers tried to calm the people, but fear had already taken over. In the shelter beneath the city, a young girl named Ina held her mother's hand tightly. "Will the Union save us?" she asked. Her mother didn't answer. She only stared at the shaking ceiling dot above them in the last operational control room. Laia stared at her screen. "Sir," she whispered, "they've breached Sector 7. Talos closed his eyes. That's the last line before the capital. Outside the shield, enemy ships moved slowly, like predators. They fired one by one, cutting through buildings, towers, and defense systems. It wasn't just destruction, it was slow, cruel hunting. The enemy wanted them to feel hopeless. "We're not getting out of this," said one soldier. "They're toying with us." Talos turned to him. "We are not dead yet, but we will be," the soldier replied. "The Union isn't coming. They don't care. We're just a forgotten colony." Leah suddenly sat upright. "I got something." Talos rushed to her station. "Is it the Union?" "No, it's I don't know." A strange signal was coming from deep space. It was faint, buried under static, but it was growing stronger. "Fast, put it on screen," Talos ordered. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the display. At first, it was just stars. Then something moved, something massive. It came out of a dark fold in space, like a shadow ripping the night. The object was shaped like a giant spear, black and jagged, with glowing blue engines. It was silent, cold, not a part of any known fleet. "What is that?" whispered Laia. "I've never seen that class of ship," said THA Loss. The enemy ships noticed it too. They turned toward it, slowly, cautiously. One of them fired. The beam struck. The dark ship panned, vanished. No explosion, no impact. It was like the ship swallowed the energy. Then, without warning, the black ship moved fast. One moment, it was far above them. The next, it was inside the atmosphere, hovering above the capital. Its shadow fell over the city like a storm. THA Loss stared at it, frozen. "It's not the Union," he said. "That's something else." On every screen, every speaker, every frequency across Valorix, the word struck like lightning. TERRAN. It was an ancient word, long buried in forgotten history. A whisper from the past, did he say? Terran Leah asked, her eyes wide. "No one has used that word for 1,000 years, Talos replied. "Terrans were humans, from Earth, but Earth was destroyed in the last war," said the soldier. "The archives said it was wiped out." The voice came again. "You are not alone." As the voice ended, beams of pure blue light shot from the Terran ship. Enemy ships exploded instantly, one, then two, then all of them. It didn't look like war. It looked like judgment. The sky turned white from the heat. A wind rushed across the land. The noise was like thunder. The capital shook as if the planet itself had cried out. Then, silence. The enemy was gone. Only the black Terran ship remained, floating, watching. Ina looked up from the shelter. She had never seen the sky like that. Her mother gasped. "Mom," Ina whispered, "are those humans?" "I don't know, baby," her mother replied. "I don't know what they are anymore." In the control room, Thalos sat down slowly. Humanity was destroyed, he said. So what is that? No one answered. They just stared at the ship. Suddenly, a new message arrived, a single line of text. In perfect translation, we remember what they did, now they will remember us. Everyone in the room felt a chill. Laia turned pale. What does that mean? She asked. It means, Thalos said, his voice shaking. This wasn't rescue. This was revenge. Far above them, the Terran ship remained silent. It didn't land, it didn't respond, it just watched and waited. Then slowly, it vanished into the clouds. No cheers followed, no celebrations, only questions, only questions. Who were the Terrans now? Why had they returned? And most of all, what had they become? The people of Valorix had survived the enemy, but as they looked at the sky, still glowing from Terran fire, they realized one terrifying truth. Humanity had changed, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The air was still. Smoke curled above the ruins of Valorix's capital. Buildings leaned like broken teeth. The blue sky, once clear, was now streaked with ash and fire trails. A heavy silence had fallen across the city. People stared up, wide-eyed, hearts pounding. The black Terran ship hovered above them like a god watching ants. It didn't move, it didn't speak. It simply waited, dark, cold, and massive. Governor Thalos stood on the roof of the command tower, staring at it. Wind tugged at his long coat. His mind raced with questions. They didn't come to talk, he said. Laia stood beside him, still shaking from what they had seen. What are they waiting for? I don't know, Thalos replied, but I don't think we're in control anymore. Suddenly, the sky split again. Not with thunder, not with sound, but with light. 4 more black ships emerged from the clouds. They moved without noise, like shadows gliding through water. Each ship had the same design, sharp, silent, deadly. Together, they formed a wide circle above Valorix. Then, one by one, they opened. Panels unfolded on their undersides. Strange machines dropped from their bellies' dark pods, glowing faintly, with blue light, hundreds of them. The pods hit the ground like seeds falling from the stars. They didn't explode, they didn't break, they pulsed. Thalos watched, heart pounding. They're deploying something. The pods hissed open from inside. Tall figures rose. Black armored soldiers with silver visors. No skin showed, no voices came. They stood still for a moment, as if sniffing the air, then began to move. Efficient, fast, inhuman. One of them walked up to a damaged building where a small group of alien civilians were trapped under rubble. It scanned them silently, then extended, a claw-like arm. The rubble floated upward, pulled by unseen force. The civilians stared in shock. The black figure didn't speak. It only turned and moved to the next ruined structure. It's helping them, Leo whispered. Thalos nodded slowly. Or controlling them. Across the capital, the black soldiers spread out. Some helped rescue survivors. Others examined enemy wreckage. A few simply stood guard watching the skies. Motionless, it was not a military occupation. It was something more, something deeper, in the underground shelter. Young Ina peeked through a crack in the ceiling. She saw one of the black soldiers walk, by slow, quiet, like it had all the time in the world. Her mother pulled her back. Don't look, she whispered. But they saved us, Ina said. Yes, her mother replied, but that doesn't mean they're safe. In the command center, the screens flickered. One screen lit up with a new message. Prepare your wounded. We will cleanse what remains. Leah frowned. Cleanse. Before Thalos could answer, alarms blared. Another fleet was approaching. Not enemy ships, but Galactic Union cruisers. Dozens of them, silver, marked with the Union crest. They came fast, weapons hot, likely responding far too late to Valorix's distress calls. One of the officers gasped. They finally came. But Thalos didn't smile. They're too late, he said quietly, and then it happened. The Terran ships shifted. Without speaking, without warning, they turned their weapons on the sky. The Union fleet didn't fire. They hailed. They tried to open contact, but the Terran ships didn't respond. A warning light appeared on the screen. Unidentified fleet. You are not authorized. Leave orbit or be purged, the Union commander replied. This is Union Fleet Command. We are responding to emergency. Code 7 from Valorix. Stand down. The Terran reply was instant. Too late. You watched. Now you will remember. Leah's face went pale. They're going to fire. And they did. A beam shot from the lead Terran ship blew and focused. It didn't strike a ship directly. It passed between two of them. But the pulse sent a ripple through space, disabling half the Union fleet's systems instantly. Engines died. Lights went dark. Communication broke. The Union ships scattered in panic. Retreating THA Loss watched in horror. They're not just here to save us, he whispered. They're sending a message. Leah swallowed hard. To who? To everyone. Above them? One of the black Terran ships turned again. This time, its attention focused on something hidden in the mountains beyond the capital. The last enemy base. Sensors picked it up. Before anyone could see it, Thalos barked, "Wait, we still have prisoners there." But the Terran ship didn't wait. It fired. A brilliant lance of energy crashed into the mountain. The ground shook violently. A mushroom of smoke rose high into the sky. The enemy bazaned everything inside. It was gone. No warning, no mercy, just silence. Talos stared at the screen, stunned. They didn't even try to negotiate. They don't care, said Leah. They came to end it, not talk. Below, in the ruins of the city, the black-armored soldiers moved again. This time, they weren't helping. They were scanning survivors, tagging them with small pulses of blue light. The weak and wounded were marked. Others were ignored. THA Lost turned from the screen. We need answers. I'm going out there. You'll get yourself killed, said Leah. Maybe, but I need to know what they are. Thalos stepped out of the tower and made his way through. The ruined streets, smoke drifted like ghosts. Ash fell like snow. He stopped in front of one of the black soldiers. It was taller than him, thicker, silent. I'm Governor Thalos of Valorix, he said. I want to speak to your commander. The soldier turned its head slowly, analyzing him. Then it spoke. Its voice was not human, not alien. It was machine-filtered, deep and distant-like. It came from far away. You already have. What are you? Talos asked. The soldier paused, then pointed at the sky. Memory. Before Thalos could reply, the soldier turned and walked away, vanishing into smoke behind him. The sky shimmered again. A new signal was coming through. A voice, human, cold. This is the beginning, it said, and then the screen went black. No name, no coordinates, no warning, just silence. The people of Valorix had been saved, but the price was unknown, because the sky had broken open, and something old had come through. Something that remembered. Pain. Something that did not forgive. Something that did not forgive something. Called humanity. The smoke had started to clear, but the fear had not. The people of Valorix wandered the broken streets in silence. They searched for family, buried their dead, and avoided the black-armored Terran soldiers who still moved quietly among them. The soldiers did not speak, eat, or rest. They scanned ruins, retrieved data cores, and disappeared just as quickly. The Galactic Union fleet had fled days ago. No messages followed, no reinforcements came. Valorix had been cut off. No one dared return, and the Terran ships still hovered above, unmoving. Watching. Governor Thalos sat in the half-destroyed council chamber. He hadn't slept, he hadn't eaten much either. His thoughts were stuck on one word: Terran, Earth's people, humans. Legends buried deep in old archives, stories of fire, fury, and loss. But the stories had stopped 500 years ago. Official records said Earth was destroyed in a border war with the Yashara Empire. The Galactic Union had called it a tragic loss. They held a short funeral broadcast. Then Earth was erased from all agendas. A forgotten world in a forgotten war. Now it seemed that wasn't the truth. They never died, Thalos whispered. They disappeared. Leah entered the chamber with a datapad. You need to see this, she said. She placed it on the table. A map of ancient star routes appeared. One blinking point pulsed near the edge of the chart. This came from one of their drones, Leah continued. It uploaded a signal into our systems. It's old, encoded with a format last used centuries ago. But I unlocked part of it. "What is it?" Thalos asked. "A broadcast. From Earth," before it fell silent. She pressed play. A voice filled the room. Human, female, strong but shaking. "This is Commander Elira of the Terran Defense Fleet. We are under siege. The Union will not help us. Our enemies have broken through Mars. Earth is next. We will not survive this, but we will not die quietly. If you ever find this message, know this: we remember and we will return." The recording ended. Silence.tha loss looked down. His voice trembled. "So they asked for help, and the Union abandoned them." Leah nodded. "Just like they abandoned us." He leaned back in his chair. "That's why they came." "They didn't just come to help us," Leah said. "They came because they saw the same enemy again. And they remember what happened last time." The door behind them opened with a hiss. A young alien boy entered Calais. His face was dirty, his clothes torn, but his eyes burned with curiosity. "Followed one of the soldiers," he said. "I saw where it went." "You what?" Leah snapped. "Are you mad?" "I stayed hidden," Cale said quickly. "They didn't see me." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. He placed it on the table. A hologram flickered to life. It showed a room, metal walls, strange lights, and rows of sealed chambers. Inside each chamber was a figure, humans but not fully. Some had mechanical limbs, others had glowing eyes. Many were connected to machines by thick cables. None of them moved. None of them looked alive. "They're sleeping," Kyle said, or something like it. Thalos stared at the hologram. "This is how they survived," he whispered. "They didn't run, they changed." Leah shook her head. "They turned themselves into machines," Calais added softly. "Some of them still cry in their sleep. I heard it." That sentence hit the room like thunder. They weren't just machines, they were memories wrapped in metal. Pain, rage, and betrayal, trapped in armor. THA Loss looked at Leah. They didn't just survive war, they became war. Outside, the sun dipped. Behind the ruined skyline, one of the Terran ships moved for the first time in hours. It turned slightly toward the southern hemisphere of the planet, Kale pointed. "That's where the old relay station is." "What would they want there?" Leah asked. "It used to store deep-cum logs," Thalos said, "including Union transmissions." From the war, a realization hit him. They're looking for proof. He stood up fast. They want to show the galaxy what the Union did, how they begged for help and were left to die. Leah looked uncertain. "Then what? Burn everything?" "I don't know," Thalos admitted. "But I don't think they came only to save us." Just then, a new message appeared on the central screen. "Begin memory upload. Let the stars remember what silence cost." Kale read it out loud. Voice, soft. "They want revenge." Talos nodded slowly. "No, they already got revenge. Now they want justice. But not the peaceful kind." That night, across all of Valorix, every screen lit up. Homes, shelters, military bunkers, even children's tablets. The Terrans were broadcasting an old video. It showed Earth in flames, cities breaking, children screaming, ships falling. From orbit, human soldiers fighting until the last breath, and then silence. After that, messages from the Union leaders, cold, political, saying Earth had fallen due to its own aggression. Then the clip ended with these words: "They watched us die. We will not watch again." Everyone who saw it was left silent. Some cried, others clenched their fists, but all of them understood. Humanity had not returned as heroes, they had returned as ghosts. The next morning, the Terran ships began to rise. The Terran ships began to rise from the tower rooftop. "Are they leaving?" Leah asked beside him. "No," he said quietly. "They're preparing for what?" He looked at her with tired eyes. "To finish what history started." Above them, the largest ship opened a massive gate 1. Unlike anything the galaxy had seen before, it shimmered with cold light. Coordinates streamed across the sky in ancient Terran script. Kale stood nearby, staring in wonder. "Where are they going now?" Phalos placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "To remind the galaxy that humanity is not dead." He looked back at the glowing gate, heart heavy, and that the ghosts of Earth have not forgotten. The wind howled across the plains outside Valorix. Ash still floated down like snow from the sky, painting the ruined capital in shades of gray. But the silence that followed the Terran broadcast was worse than any firestorm. It was a silence, heavy with a message the whole planet had heard. The Terrans didn't come to talk. They came to remind the galaxy what silence had cost them. From orbit, their black ships still hovered. Their glowing engines hummed low like ancient machines awakening. Across the capital, survivors moved cautiously. No one dared challenge the soldiers in black armor, not even the highest officers. But not everyone stayed afraid. In a small military outpost just outside the city, Commander Niran of the Galactic Union's reserve fleet watched the sky with fury in his eyes. His cruiser had barely survived the Terran warning shot. His pride hadn't. "We came to help," he growled, "and they attacked us like enemies." "They saved Valorix," said his second officer. Niran turned sharply. "They humiliated the Union." He pointed to the still smoking ruins in the distance. "They don't care about peace. They want control. We're still receiving their broadcasts," the officer said. And a new message just came through. Niran snatched the tablet and read the glowing text to all Union fleets. "You watched Earth die. You called it necessary. You will not decide what is necessary. Again, withdraw. This is your first and only warning, Commander." Niran's jaw clenched. "Only warning. No one gives the Union orders, especially not ghosts." He turned to the room. "Prepare the fleet." On Valorix, Governor Thalos stood before the main memory wall in the city square. Holographic recordings played in loops images of Earth's fall, the Terran screams, the betrayal. Children and elders alike stood watching the display. None spoke. Tha Loss turned to Leah. "They're not going to stop," he said. "They're trying to change the narrative for the entire galaxy." "They already have," she whispered. "People don't trust the Union anymore. Not after this." A small group of surviving colony leaders gathered around Thalos. One of them, a short gray-skinned female named Velna, stepped forward. "This isn't a rescue. This is a revolution. The Terrans are building something." Kale, the boy who had followed the soldiers earlier, stepped out from the crowd. "They're building a memory," he said. "Something so powerful that no one will forget them again." Talos looked at the sky. Or forgive them. Suddenly, alarms rang out again. A new fleet was entering orbit. 20 Union warships, led by Commander Niran himself. They had come armed, ready. From deep inside the Terran flagship. A figure stirred. Admiral Kalen. He stood before a wall of old human relics. A child's drawing, a broken Earth medal, a torn Union treaty. A voice came through the ship's core. "Union ships have returned armed. They do not heed the warning." Kalen did not blink. "Then they've chosen their fate." The ship powered up. Across Valorix, shadows spread as the Terran ships turned their massive cannons skyward. "Commander," Niran's cruiser broadcast one last hail to the planet. "This is Commander Niran of the Galactic Union. The unauthorized Terran fleet must stand down immediately. Any further violation of space law will be treated as an act of war." Silence. Then a voice answered across all Union and planetary channels.com. "Cold, human. War was declared 5 centuries ago. You just stopped hearing it." The signal cut, and the sky lit up. The first Terran ship fired, a silent pulse that ripped through the nearest Union cruiser. It didn't explode. It simply vanished. Its atoms dissolved in midair. The Union fleet panicked. Evasive maneuvers, shields at maximum, but it was too late. The Terrans moved like they had practiced this for generations. Precise, cold, efficient. Each ship fired only once. Each shot hit perfectly, and each hit erased a ship from existence. On the ground, Thalos watched in horror. "They gave them a warning," he said. "They never planned to repeat it," Leah whispered. Kalau tugged on Thalos's coat. "Why didn't the Union listen?" "Because they didn't believe the Terrans would come back." No one did. One Union ship tried to flee. A tiny signal escaped its core, but the Terrans detected it. A dark satellite launched from orbit caught the signal and played it for all to hear. The Union officer's voice trembled. "They're not human anymore. They're machines wearing the past-like armor." Then the voice went silent. The battle ended in 5 minutes. Nothing was left of the Union fleet, not even debris, only the stars and the message. The people of Valorix stood in stunned silence. Some cheered softly. Others wept. Tha Loss stood in the square and looked at the sky. They said humanity had fallen, he said. But now I understand. They didn't fall, Leah said. They descended. At that moment, a beam of light came down from the Terran ship. It scanned the city. Then, focused on the center of the square, a new structure began to rise, made of black metal and blue energy. It shimmered like smoke trapped in glass. What is it? Kale asked. Thalos watched the walls form, glowing with names. Every name of a Terran who had died 500 years ago. It's a memorial, he whispered. For a world the galaxy let die. And beneath the memorial a single line etched itself into the stone. We warned you once. There will not be a second time. Across the galaxy, signals from Valorix spread. Footage, warnings, truth. Planets that once mocked Earth went silent. The Union began emergency meetings, trying to hide the truth. But it was too late, because now every world knew the Terrans had returned, and they were not interested in peace. They were here to remind the galaxy that forgetting Earth was the last mistake anyone would ever make. The sun rose over Valorix, casting pale light over broken buildings and black warships still hovering in the sky. The air was cold and quiet to quiet. That waits for something worse. The people moved carefully now. They spoke in whispers. Even the children had stopped crying, because the Terrans were still watching, and they never blinked. The black-armored soldiers walked the streets like shadows. They moved with mechanical calm. Their armor was matte black, their visors glowing faintly blue. Some were 8 feet tall. Some had strange weapons attached to their arms. Others had no visible weapons at all, but things moved under their skin as if machines lived inside. The people of Valorix, didn't know what to call them. Not soldiers, not machines, not human. They simply called them the Steel Ones. In the ruins of an old school, 3 children watched one of the Steel Ones from behind a broken wall, whispered Ina. He's guarding something, said her friend Tez. I think they're watching the skies. Or us, muttered the 3rd child. Suddenly, the Steel One turned its head, just slightly. Enough to let them know had heard every word. The children ran. The soldier did not follow. Inside the former council hall, Governor Thalos stood before a long table. Around him sat the surviving colony leaders, those still brave enough to show their faces. Leah stood near the wall, arms crossed, silent. Thalos cleared his throat. They've destroyed 2 Union fleets, built a monument in our capital, and now they walk our streets like they own them. Velna, one of the elder leaders, slammed her hand on the table. We can't allow this. We didn't ask for occupation. Thalos nodded. We didn't, but we didn't stop them either. And now it's too late. A younger leader spoke, softly, but they saved us. No, Thalos said. They destroyed our enemy, not for us, for themselves. Leia finally spoke. They gave us a warning. Now they're giving us a message. What message? Age of Silence is finished. That afternoon, Kale followed one of the Steel Ones again. He didn't mean to. He just couldn't stop himself. Curiosity had taken root in his mind like a parasite. The Steel One walked into the lower district and area untouched by recent battles. The factory was dark. Dust floated in the air. Old machines lay rusted and silent. The Steel One walked to the center of the room and stopped. Then, something stepped out. It was human, but not like the stories. The man was tall, his skin pale, his eyes replaced by glowing implants. Tubes connected his back to the suit. His face had no emotion. He didn't see Kel. He walked to a small console, placed a hand on it, and spoke in a voice as cold as space. Subject 47, returning for recharge. Host integrity, stable. Neural pain, increasing. Requesting temporary disconnect. Kale didn't understand most of it, but one thing was clear. These soldiers felt pain. They weren't machines. They were people. People twisted by something worse than death in the city square. More Terran equipment had appeared overnight. Strange towers with blue lights, floating drones that scanned every inch of the ruins. Some of the people tried to approach them. The drones made no noise. But when one man got too close, a Steel One appeared and raised a hand. The man froze. The soldier didn't attack. It simply stared at him then. In a voice like wind-scraping metal, it said, "You are not the target yet." And then it walked away. Later that night, Thalos received a message. It wasn't on any frequency, no signal lights, no digital file, just a simple envelope. Written by hand, you remember Earth as a story. We remember it as a wound. No signature, no seal, just that one line. Thalos sat in silence for a long time. Then he stood, walked to the city's outer edge, and looked up. The Terran ships were still there, but one of them had changed. It had opened a long bay door end inside. Glowing faintly were hundreds more soldiers, rows and rows of sleeping steel ones, connected to machines. Waiting, preparing. He whispered to himself, "They're not just here to send a message. They're staging something," said. Hachelos turned to her. "You think they'll listen?" "We have to try," she said, "because I don't think they're finished." The square. It turned toward them as they approached. Thalos cleared his throat. "We are the leaders of this colony," he said. "We request communication with your command." The soldier was silent for a moment, then it raised its hand and pressed a point on its armor. A hologram appeared in the air. It was not a man, it was a face made of shifting fragments, old human features mixed with machine code. It spoke slowly. "Humanity is not one mind. We are many. Broken, forged, awakened. You speak to one voice." "That is enough." Talos stepped forward. "What do you want from us?" The face shifted. "Nothing. You were never the target. Your suffering was familiar." Velna spoke. "Then why are you still here?" The answer was instant. "Because they are not all gone, and we are not done remembering." Then the face vanished, and the soldier walked away. That night, Kale sat on his rooftop, looking at the stars. He didn't feel safe. He didn't feel saved. He felt watched, not by monsters, but by something worse, by humans who remembered what it was like to be forgotten, and who had turned that pain into steel. As the wind whispered across the rooftops, Kale closed his eyes. Somewhere, far above him, in the heart of a Terran warship, machines hummed softly. Soldiers slept, weapons charged, and history waited to strike again. Because the Terrans had made their warning clear. This time, they would not be the ones to fall silent. Every night, the people of Valorix stared up at them, expecting to feel wonder. But now the stars felt sharp, cold, alive, because somewhere out there, hidden in the darkness, were ships shaped like fear and filled with humans, who no longer smiled. For the first time in centuries, humanity had returned, and no one knew what they were. Anymore, Kale couldn't sleep. He had seen too much. The soldier removing his armor, the man beneath it, the whisper of pain in his voice. Kale had told no one, not even his mother, because he didn't have the words. What was a human? The stories from school said humans were extinct. They lived on Earth, a green-blue world full of music and war. They were emotional, they laughed, they cried, they fought too much, too often. That's why they were gone. But now they were back. And none of the stories were true. Kale needed to know the truth for himself. So one quiet night, under a moonless sky, Kale snuck into the southern edge of the city. That's where the Terrans had built their strange black dome, silent, sealed, guarded by only 2 steel ones. Kale didn't approach the front. He slipped into the underground tunnels once used by the old transport systems. The air was dusty. The lights were dead. But Kale kept moving. He wasn't brave. He was just too curious to be afraid. Inside the dome, the world was different. Walls shimmered like liquid metal. The ground hummed under his feet. Strange shapes floated above the floor symbols. Holograms, blueprints. The air was heavy, cold, full of something that didn't feel alive, but wasn't dead either. Kale hid behind a glowing pillar. In front of him were 3 Terran soldiers. One had no helmet. She was young, maybe 20, but her eyes were replaced. With glass, her skin was pale, marked with scars that glowed faintly. Tubes ran from her neck to her chest. She sat across from a man wearing a heavy black cloak. His voice echoed with a deep vibration. "You're not adapting fast enough. Neural sync is falling. I need time," the girl said softly. "Don't have time." Kale watched her lower her head. "The memories, they're too strong. I keep seeing Earth burn." The man placed a hand on her shoulder, but it was metal. A metal hand trying to comfort flesh. It didn't work. Kale backed away. He didn't want to see more. He didn't want to hear this. But just before he turned, the girl looked straight at him. Her voice echoed, "You shouldn't be here, child." Cale froze. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I just wanted to understand." The man stood slowly. "You've seen more than most," Kale nodded. "You're not like the stories." "No," the man said. "We are what the stories forgot. They didn't kill him. They didn't erase his memory. They let him leave, but they gave him something before he went. A memory shard, a smooth black disc the size of his palm." The girl placed it in his hand and said, "If anyone asks you what humans are, show them this." And then they disappeared into the domes as shadows. Back at home, Cale activated the shard. Light filled the room. Sounds, screams, images. A little girl hiding under a metal table as the sky burned red. A mother carrying a child through collapsing. Rubble, an ocean turning black with smoke. A father recording a final message to his family while enemy ships closed in. "I don't hate them," the man said, eyes full of tears. "But I'll never forgive the Union for turning away. We weren't dangerous, we were desperate." Cale cried. He had never seen Earth, but now he had felt it. He understood. The next day, Cale went to Governor Thalos. He placed the shard on his desk. "You need to show this to the others." Talos watched the memory. His hands trembled. His voice cracked. "They were left to die." "Yes," Cale said, "and now they've returned. Not as humans, but as what we made them." Leah stepped into the room as the last memory played. She stood silent, then said, "We keep asking what they are." Thalos looked up, their pain, bottled and sharpened. Meanwhile, across the city, something strange happened. The steel ones stopped moving. Every single one, they stood frozen in place. In the streets, on rooftops, at gates, as if frozen in time. Then, as one, they looked to the sky, and a new ship arrived. It was larger than the rest, black and gold. Its surface glowed with ancient Terran symbols. It drifted slowly over casting a shadow large enough to cover the entire capital. The other ships made space for it. This was no ordinary vessel. This was the Revenant, the flagship of the Terran Reclaimers. Inside, Admiral Kalen stood at the heart of a memory chamber. He stared at images pulled from ancient Earth satellites, cities before the fall, children laughing, skies that hadn't burned. His second officer approached. "We've confirmed," the boy entered the dome. He was seen and let go. Kalen turned, eyes hard. Then he saw the truth. "What do? We wait for what?" Kellen's voice was quiet. For the rest of the galaxy to ask the same question. Later that night, Leah joined Thalos on the observation tower. They looked up at the Revenant. "We feared monsters," she said. "We feared humans," Thalos corrected. "But they're not that anymore." "No," Leah agreed. "They're something else." They watched as the ship began sending signals not to Valorix, but to other systems, other colonies, other forgotten worlds. Cale's memory shard had become the first piece of a message, not just for Valorix, but for everyone. And the message was simple. You called us extinct. You called us emotional. You called us dangerous. You were right. We are human, and we remember. Cale stood on the balcony of his home, staring at the stars. He had found his answer. Humans were not gone. They had become the echo of what the galaxy feared most, a people who learned how to survive without mercy. And now, the stars would learn what that meant. For the first time in 5 centuries, the stars were afraid. Not because of warships or weapons, but because of memory. The Terrans had returned, not as diplomats, not as soldiers, but as ghosts, wearing steel and fire, carrying pain like a crown. And now they were speaking. To every world, every race, every system that once ignored their screams, one by one. The forgotten truths of Earth were being broadcast across the galaxy, and one by one, the Union's lies were crumbling. On the planet Dresna, a luxury world of silver towers and floating gardens, the news arrived late. People there didn't follow war updates. They didn't care about distant colonies like Valorix. But when the sky turned red with warning signals and their screens began showing Earth's final moments, even the elites stopped laughing. In the Great Hall of Records, the High Archivist, Ellen Drez, watched the footage on a loop. Burning cities, children running through ash, ships falling like comets. A final desperate message from Earth's last commander. They left us. Let history record it. She stared in horror. Beside her, her assistant whispered, "We ignored them, didn't we?" Ellen didn't answer, but her silence said everything. On the trade world of Silem 4, where Union propaganda flowed stronger than water, riots broke out. The people were angry, not at the Terrans, but at the Union. Old soldiers came forward, and women who had once fought near Earth's sector, they shared sealed records, forbidden recordings, hidden truths. A captain stood on a public stage and shouted, "I saw the Union orders." Earth begged for help. We were told to turn away, to let them fall. We were told they were no longer worth the risk. The crowd roared. The stars were listening back on Valorix. The broadcasts only grew louder. New memory shards arrived by Terran drones to different cities and colonies. Each shard told a new story. A mother's last lullaby under falling buildings, a soldier sacrificing himself to let civilians board a failing escape pod, a teacher recording one final lesson for students who never made it to class. THA Loss stood in the council chamber, watching shard after shard. He didn't speak. He couldn't. Leah finally broke the silence. "They're not just telling us they survived. They're telling us why they changed," Thalos said, "and why they'll never forgive." In a hidden corner of the galaxy, deep inside Union Central Command, the High Council gathered in panic. Chairs once filled with pride now shook with fear. "They're turning the people against us," one member shouted. "They're weaponizing history." Another slammed at the table. "Then we need to erase it, shut down their broadcasts, destroy the shards." But one voice cut through them all. Chancellor Tava, the oldest among them, stood slowly. "You can't." "Kill ghosts," she said. The room went quiet. "We silenced them once," she continued, "and look what they became. They don't want peace. They want justice that bleeds." Meanwhile, aboard the Terran flagship Revenant, Admiral Kalen stood before a new star map. It showed every planet that had once signed the Union. Pact. Every world that had once called Earth aggressive, unstable, a risk. He touched one name on the screen. Oralis Prime. "They voted against Earth's aid," he said quietly. Another officer nodded. "We've sent the message, Kalen." Didn't respond. He simply said, "Begin Phase 2. On Oralis Prime, a world of scholars and philosophers." The message came like a thunderstorm. The skies filled with Terran ships, not to attack, not to destroy, but to remember, in every city. Terran machines dropped shards into public plazas, and each shard told a story from Earth's last days. Children on Oralis watched wide-eyed their teachers. Once firm believers in the Union broke down in tears. One whispered, "We didn't know." A voice from the shard replied, "You knew. You just turned away." In Valorix's city square, a new structure began to rise, built not by Valorix hands, but by Terran machines, tall, black, covered in names of planets, Talos and Laia. Stood before it. "These aren't human names," Laia said. Thalos nodded. "These are the names of every world that turned its back on Earth." On the monument, beneath the names, a line glowed. "This galaxy did not kill us. It simply watched us die." Leah looked up. "What happens when they're done reminding everyone?" Thalos didn't answer at first, then said quietly, "Then they'll decide who still deserves forgiveness." On the edge of Valorix, Kale stood on a cliff, holding his memory shard tight. He had watched it 100 times, the pain, the fire, the faces, but something in him had changed. He didn't just see victims anymore. He saw people who had been reshaped. By betrayal, people who loved too deeply were punished for it, and now they were no longer asking to be heard. They were demanding it. That night, all across the galaxy, a single message was broadcast again. Not from one ship, not from one world, from every Terran vessel. "To those who abandoned us, we do not seek your apology. To those who ignored our pain, we do not need your words. To those who remain silent, still, we will teach you the weight of silence. We are the memory you buried. We are the truth you feared. We are what humanity became when it was left behind." And as the message ended, the sky above Valorix cracked again. Another fleet of Terran ships emerged, larger, heavier. But this time, they weren't here for a message. They were here for judgment, because the time for remembering was ending, and the time for reckoning had begun. The new Terran fleet arrived like a storm with no thunder. Silent, black, endless dot, they didn't announce themselves. No greetings, no broadcasts. Just a shadow that fell over Valorix and the rest of the stars. Each ship bore the same ancient symbol, a fractured Earth, surrounded by chains. Leah saw it first from the watchtower. Her voice cracked as she called to Thalos. They're here. He didn't ask who. He already knew. The new Terran fleet wasn't here to save. It was here to judge. Across the city, the Steel Ones moved faster now. No longer silent watchers, they were scanning buildings, identifying communication towers, uploading coordinates into the sky. Kale watched from a rooftop, heart racing. They're preparing for something. His mother pulled him down, away from the windows. But what if they're not attacking us? They don't need to, she said. They're reminding everyone they can. Governor Thalos stood in the square with Leah and a dozen colony leaders. Above them, the monument glowed with names planets that betrayed Earth. But now, a second row of names began to appear beneath each planet. Thalos stared in disbelief. These are people, Leah squinted. People who voted to abandon Earth. Each name faded in and out like a heartbeat. They're listing them publicly, she whispered, exposing the ones who watched Earth burn. One leader, Velna, stepped back. I recognize some of those names. High-ranking Union officials, advisors, even former chancellors. And then a new symbol lit up on the monument. A timer, counting down from 72 hours, what happens when it reaches 0? Someone asked. No one answered, because deep down they already knew in orbit. Aboard the Terran flagship Revenant, Admiral Kalen watched dozens of transmissions flood in .panic, .begging, .bribes, .union systems. Across the galaxy, we're sending desperate messages we did not know. We were misled. Please, let us explain. Kalen stood silently, arms behind his back, then said only one word. Too late. His second-in-command nodded. The timer is running, and when it ends, the officer asked. Kellen's voice was calm. They will understand what regret tastes like. Meanwhile, on Valorix, Kale did something dangerous. He approached a Steel One, alone. The soldier stopped. Watched him. Kale held up the memory shard they'd given him. I don't understand, he said. You showed us your pain. You made us feel it. But now you're threatening everyone else. Why? The Steel One didn't speak. It didn't move then. Slowly, it reached up and removed its helmet. Kale froze. It wasn't a man beneath it. It was a woman. Young, her face was pale, marked with scars that glowed. Her eyes were gone, replaced by slow-turning silver lenses. But when she spoke, her voice was soft. Human. We gave them a chance, she said. We gave them truth. They chose silence again. Kale's voice trembled. Not everyone turned. Away she nodded slowly. And not everyone will survive what comes next. Then she walked past him, disappearing into the shadows. On the final day, as the countdown reached 12 hours, something unexpected happened. A Union flagship arrived. Alone, it hovered in low orbit, unarmed. A single shuttle descended to Valorix. Everyone held their breath. The shuttle landed in the city square. From it stepped a tall, tired woman in white robes. That's Chancellor Tava Thalos. Stepped forward, she's the one who led the vote to abandon Earth. Now she stood in front of the Terran monument, her face pale, her eyes filled with shame. I have come to speak for the Union. She said. No one moved. No Terran responded. So she continued, I was there when the vote happened. I watched the petitions come in. I heard the cries for help, and I voted no. Whispers rippled through the crowd. I thought Earth would survive. I thought they were strong enough to endure alone. I was wrong. She turned to the black sky. Any Terran who still listens, I do not ask for forgiveness. I ask only that you spare those who were never given a choice. The children, the workers, the ones who didn't know. Silence followed. Then a voice spoke from the monument. Truth accepted. Judgment paused. The countdown froze at 7 hours, 34 minutes. People gasped. Chancellor Tava closed her eyes, tears rolling down her cheeks. Inside the Revenant, Admiral Kalen watched the moment unfold. Do we pause? An officer asked. Kalen didn't blink. Yes, but only for now. Later that evening, Leia found Kale sitting alone at the edge of the square. She sat beside him. They stopped the countdown, he said. She bought them time. Leia nodded, but not peace, not yet. Kale turned toward her. Do you think they'll ever forgive? Leia looked at the stars. No, she said, but maybe they'll choose something better than revenge. Above them, the monument shimmered. The names continued to scroll, and the stars watched silently because the Terrans had not forgotten, and now the galaxy knew you can kill a world, but you can't bury the truth forever. And when the truth wakes up wearing armor, it doesn't ask for justice, it becomes it. The countdown remained frozen. 7 hours, 34 minutes, but no one on Valorix believed it would stay that way forever. The sky was still full of Terran ships. The steel ones still marched in silence, and the people still feared what came. Next, they weren't sure if the Terrans were waiting for an answer, or just watching how many begged before the clock resumed, but deep down, everyone knew the chain holding back the Terrans' wrath. Thalos answered, or giving us time to bury ourselves. Below, the plaza was packed with citizens, not against the Terrans, but against the Union. People waved signs. They lit fires. They broke statues of old Union leaders. Leia pointed. You see it now, don't you? Across the city, Kale sat with a group of kids. He held his memory shard like a fragile flame, shared and duplicated by Terran drones. They didn't speak, they just watched burning cities, screaming skies, Earth's final days, and they remembered. Kale whispered, they didn't come back to destroy. They'll stop warning. A strange new message came from the Terran flagship that evening. Not a threat, not an order, a story. It played across every screen on Valorix and picked flowers, held a wooden toy ship. Then explosions, flames, ships falling from the sky. Risk, the Terran region, is no longer under Union protection. The last thing shown was the girl's toy ship broken and burned. The screen went black. Then one line appeared. The chain broke when you left us behind. Union systems panicked. Some began destroying their records, hiding files, silencing former leaders, but it was too late. The Terrans had copied everything, and they were flooding the stars with truth. On Valorix, no guards, no ships, just a woman carrying regret on her back. Thalos found her near the new Terran monument. Why are you still here? She placed her hand on the monument. I voted against helping them because I was afraid. Of them, of what they might become. Leia stepped forward. And now you've seen what they became. Teva nodded. They became the warning we should have listened to. A new visitor arrived at dawn, but it wasn't a Terran ship. It was an old Union vessel, weathered, cracked. Slow. From it stepped a man in worn robes, walking with a cane. His name was Solon, a former Union historian. He requested an audience with Admiral Kalen, and strangely, they allowed it. Inside the Revenant, Solon stood before Kalen. I don't come to argue, he said. I come to surrender. Kalen raised an eyebrow. You're not in a position to bargain. I'm not bargaining. I'm confessing. He held out a small device. Kalen took it, activated it. A recording began. Union votes, secret meetings, classified orders. One phrase repeated over and over. Let Earth fall. I was the archivist, Solon said. I was told to erase it, but I couldn't. I saw the faces. I read the pleas. Why give it to me now? Solon looked at him with hollow eyes. Because it's not history anymore. The recording spread like wildfire. Every colony, every world, even the Union's central servers were hacked. The truth wasn't just known now, it was unavoidable. That night, as the truth reached its peak, the countdown began again, but not downward, upward. The numbers started rising. Leia watched from the tower, confused. They're counting forward now. Kale stood beside her. It's not a countdown anymore, Thalos approached. It's a record of what? Kale answered. Of how long the galaxy remembers this time. Admiral Kalen gave one final message that night. It played once. Everywhere we were not monsters. We were not your enemy. We were children of Earth. You chained us with silence. Now we break that chain with memory. This is not vengeance. This is remembrance that burns. You had your time to speak. Now we speak loud enough to echo through time. And just like that, the Terran ships began to leave. One by one, no battle, no demands, no conquerors, just ghosts, fading back into the stars. But they left something behind. The monument, the memory shards, and a galaxy that could never unsee what it had seen. 2 days later, people were rebuilding. Children played again, but they played quietly, with respect. Some drew pictures of broken dot, not with war, dot, not with fire, but with truth. So loud it shattered silence. Because in the end, humanity didn't come back to destroy the galaxy, they came back to remind it what it destroyed. The stars were quiet now, not out of peace, but out of fear and respect. The Terrans had left Valorix. Their ships vanished like ghosts. No traces, no signals, no threats. But they didn't leave empty-handed. They left something behind. A story that burned in every system, a truth that could never be forgotten, a memory that changed everything. Kale stood at the center of the monument. The black stone towered above him, humming softly. It still displayed names in the ones now, not just the guilty, but the ones who chose to remember. People who stood up. People who spoke when silence ruled for too long. Leah approached slowly. "You've been coming here every day," Kale nodded. "It's like standing in front of a grave." Leah looked up at the monument. A grave, or a warning. Kale turned toward her. "Do you think they'll ever return?" She didn't answer right away. "Then they don't need to. Their message is already here. It's in our air now." In the Union High Council chambers, silence ruled. Gone were the polished speeches and elegant robes. Now the chambers were filled with shame and hollow eyes. Hundreds of leaders had resigned. Dozens had vanished, and a single massive broadcast screen showed what haunted them most. The girl from Earth, the child who watched her, Homeburn, was now the symbol of Terran memory. It played on a loop. Every time the footage ended, one phrase appeared. "You made us remember. Now we make you do the same." On Oralis Prime, a Terran drone floated down from the sky. It didn't speak. It didn't scan. It planted a tree. Then another and another. The trees grew fast, genetically accelerated. They bore blue leaves that shimmered in the dark. People gathered in silence, watching the forest rise. To those who watched Earth burn and chose to do nothing, let these roots teach your children what silence costs. On Valorix, Thalos stood before a crowd of thousands. "We were witnesses to history," he said. "We saw what happens when truth is buried, when pain is ignored, when mercy is delayed." He gestured to the stars. And now the stars themselves have changed. The crowd listened silently. The Union will try to rebuild. That is not wrong, but it must build with memory, not power. He looked toward Kale, who stood near the monument, holding a memory shard. And that responsibility now belongs to all of us. Kale knew his role had changed. He was no longer just a boy with questions. He had become a keeper of stories. And those stories were dangerous, because they were true every week. More memory shards arrived from systems once silent. Survivors from Earth, children who escaped through old cryopods, hidden bases that had stored voices for centuries, and each story added fuel to the galaxy's transformation in one shard. A mother told her child bedtime stories as bombs fell. Above Dot, in another, a soldier whispered apologies to a dying enemy soldier, both forgotten by their governments. In a third, a Union scientist defected mid-war and saved 1,000 Earth civilians, only to be executed by her own fleet. Kale didn't just watch these memories, he began broadcasting them. A new channel was created across the stars, the voice of Earth, and through it, Kale shared the memories the Union had buried. Not to accuse, but to remind the voice of Earth grew. It reached planets that had never even heard of the Terran. Wars, it reached children who asked, "Why didn't we help?" It reached leaders who fell silent during every broadcast, and it reached the next generation, who now refused to repeat the mistakes of the old. Years passed, the Union fractured. Some worlds left, others reformed into new councils. The monument on Valorix was declared a sacred site. Pilgrims from across the galaxy came to see it. They didn't come to worship, they came to remember. Kale continued his work. He aged, he taught, He became a storyteller not of heroes or conquests, but of truth. And one day, a strange package arrived. No return address, just a shard. Kale activated it. The image flickered to life. A Terran soldier, face hidden, voice low. You chose not to run, you chose to listen. And now, you are part of us. Kale smiled faintly. Then another line appeared. We are not returning to power. We are returning to memory. And with that, the shard deactivated. That night, Kale stood at the monument one last time. Leah stood beside him, older now too. They both looked up at the stars. They never wanted revenge, Kale said. No, Leah replied. They wanted a promise. To never forget, Kale whispered, and above them, a new star blinked into view. Some said it was a ship. Others said it was a beacon. But Kale knew the truth. It was a memory. Burned into the stars themselves. The galaxy would never be the same, because once humanity had screamed for help, and no one answered. But now, humanity had become the voice that could never be silenced, and as long as their memories were passed on, the sky would never forget them again.